Morning,
Good
Isa.
morning.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's great to see everyone. Morning, all.
Good afternoon.
Morning.
Good afternoon, Rory. You know, it's amazing how Perusall, even though we have lots of new people joining us today, I feel I already know you from interacting with each other. It's just amazing. And thank you for being so incredibly diligent. Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
You may want to introduce yourself in the chat because we have a number of new people. We're going to start in a few minutes. So please introduce yourselves, even if you're a regular, saying where you're from. And if you're not teaching physics, tell us what you do as part of your job. I'm really excited about this session, given the activity. In fact, I was up late last night reading through all of your excellent points and responding to a number of them online, and we'll address the rest today. So I'm gonna wait another minute or so for people to sign in. Pasadena, it's early for you. Sorry to get you out of bed that early. Houston, Ireland, with quite a contingency from Ireland. Wonderful. And I thought I saw Cecilia, who is from the Netherlands. And Dagmara from Poland. How nice. I'm still scrolling here through the chat. Happy Thanksgiving, Celestina. I can't believe it's already the end of November. It's scary how fast time flies, especially when you're working from home and everything is a blur. You know, I have to learn how to recreate a balance between personal and professional life. And I think there was somebody on Perusall yesterday who made a really good point about, you know, the amount of material, the amount of work, and how, you know, students feel overwhelmed. I think it's not just students who feel overwhelmed, we all feel overwhelmed. It's the pace of change, learning to process information in a new way. It's making it a lot harder.
Not to mention elections.
I have co-worker waiting in wings, has done pre-assigned but not received link, says Joseph Price. Can you pass him the link to the Zoom meeting, I presume, Joseph? Feel free to unmute yourself.
But the letter said not to. But if it's okay, I'll go ahead and send it to
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well,
we don't want the link posted on social media in order to avoid getting overrun. Absolutely.
All right, I'll take care of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We had a really good participation on Perusall. We had, let me check. We had, let's see. Where can I see that? I have to clean up my courses on Perusall. I just have too many. We had, I'm just gonna go here. No, can't find the right view. We have on the order of about 150 comments that were left, but some people were really active. But I can't exactly see how many people. I forgot where I can see that. I can see it for the course as a whole, but it mixes in the other talks that we posted. But we had something like 40 people who were active on Perusall. We have 26 people here, so I'm kind of surprised that we have fewer people. Maybe people thought, okay, I got all the information I needed from the pre-assignment, but the whole point was to resolve the remaining few issues. Do we know if Krastan is going to join us?
Yes, I believe he will.
Okay.
I don't see him there yet.
Okay. Let me text him. Okay. So I think it's in the interest of time, since we want to keep this to an hour, I am going to start here. So welcome. I'm Eric Mazur. I teach physics at Harvard, where I'm also a member of the Faculty of Education, in addition to being a physicist. And I'm happy to see familiar faces and new faces for this Saturday morning workshop. I want to thank you all for your overwhelming response. It was really wonderful to see the engagement online and the many excellent points that people raised. And the purpose of what I'm going to do today is to sort of dig a little bit deeper. I will not present what's in the pre-assignment. I mean, the whole goal of that was really to get that out of the way, so we can focus on digging a little bit deeper than just transferring information. Let me share a few slides before we dive into what I want to discuss. So the goal of my session here today is really to demonstrate how to integrate Perusall in your teaching approach. So I will not discuss many technical issues. And if you have a technical problem, the best is to look at the support page on Perusall or to write an email to support@perusall.com. That is much more efficient than trying to resolve that in any face-to-face time. So I will mainly focus on pedagogy and discuss a few technical issues that are related to pedagogy. And I will discuss them based on the questions that you left. So in the video that you saw, you saw this slide actually, and you saw that I like to think of education as a two-step process: information transfer, step 1, and sense making, step 2. Typically, the information transfer is done in a live session or in a lecture or in the classroom. For the past 30 years, I've been flipping that approach and put the information transfer out of the classroom. Now, a lot of people think that flipping the classroom involves having students watch videos. I have never been in favor of watching videos. In fact, I resisted adding videos to Perusall until this pandemic hit. And we can discuss why later if you're interested. But starting in 1991, so almost 30 years ago, I started to require my students to read before the classroom, but I never really found a good way of engaging them in that reading in a meaningful way. I used to do reading quizzes, for example, but then I found that my students would simply scan the text, highlighting terms that they think I could ask the next day, and read in an extremely superficial way. So about 7 years ago, when I switched from my standard classroom-based introductory physics course, even though it was an active engagement course, from teaching that in an auditorium to a team and project-based course in a flat classroom where you couldn't lecture at all, I thought I need to find a way to really take care of this first step in a much more efficient way than I've done in the past. And that's when I came up with this idea of a social learning platform, a platform where people are connected to each other. That's why I was so excited to see that with you too, it connected you to each other in an effective way. So we've had the information transfer. If you have not done the pre-assignment, which is very possible, then unfortunately, I'm not going to tell you what was in pre-assignment because I'd be duplicating effort. You can still go back afterwards and filling the gaps by going back to the pre-assignment at your leisure. The focus today is to really, go deeper, make sense, resolve any difficulties that or questions that were raised in the pre-assignment. So I'd like to start. So you've done this on Perusall, and now we're going to do this blue square here. Now, before we start, I'm going to stop sharing here for a moment. I'd like to run a very quick poll. So I'm going to relaunch this poll. Yep, continue. Here we go. There should be a poll in front of you. It has 3 questions. Did you have fun doing the pre-assignment? First question. 2, did you gain new insights from the pre-assignment? And 3, when you were a student in college, the first choice is a repetition of the question, so don't click that for the last question. Poll programming error, no worries. And then you have to hit submit all the way at the bottom, otherwise I cannot see your answers. Good, we have 2 people who answered. Okay, 9 people. So I'm going to give you another 20 seconds to answer the 3 questions. And glancing over the answers I've received, it is not very different from what I see when I give a similar workshop elsewhere or when I poll my students, which is not that surprising. We're all human beings after all. So 5 more seconds left. So if you want to get your answers in, click fast and hit submit at the bottom. Going once, going twice. And I'm going to close the poll and share the results with you. So let's look at the first one. The majority thought it was fun. That's good. 13% did not do the pre-assignment. And as I said, there might be some things that you have questions about because they're in a pre-assignment. You can always go back later. And then, did you gain any new insight from the pre-assignment? 58% said yes from the article or video. And then 4 plus 25%, so that's 29%, benefited from the discussion with others. Now, isn't that interesting? That means that if you just read on your own, right? If you had read disconnected from other people, instead of 58% who benefited from the pre-assignment, instead of 25 plus 4 is 29 plus 58, so that's almost 90%, we would drop down to around 58%. So the fact of being able to engage with each other is very important because it almost doubles the number who benefit from the pre-assignment. And that's no different when I do this with other audiences, whether it's students or instructors at the college level, university level, researchers. We have a number of faculty groups at Harvard who are using Perusall to, as sort of a journal club to teach each other and learn from each other. It's pretty much the same answers that we get. Now let's look at question number 3. I have to tell you, when I was a student, I rarely ever read anything before going to class, and I have no problem admitting that. I said rarely. I think I should just say never. I never read. So I'm kind of relieved to see that 54% of you also clicked rarely or none. I feel less alone now. Now, interestingly, 70% read for every class and every course you took. I'm very impressed. I am very, very impressed. I'm certainly very far from that category. So I have a question before we start with a little icebreaker here. And I'm aiming this question at those of you who chose rarely or none as the answer to this last question. Why was it, and just unmute your microphone, why was it that we never read? I mean, here's an interesting thing, and this came up in the discussion online on Perusall too, right? I mean, a lot of you were saying, well, if I ask my students to read, they don't read. And if I ask instructors, I haven't asked you, but if I ask instructors in general, why, after they say my students won't read, I said, why don't, or do a pre-assignment, why don't your students do the pre-assignment? I usually get, statements that blame the students. They're lazy, they're not motivated, they don't have time, they're unable to really, parse the information. It's all blaming the students. But now we see that 54% of us who became successful in our career, otherwise we wouldn't be instructors, teachers, we didn't read either. Why is that? Is that because we weren't motivated? No, you were motivated, otherwise you would not have become you would have graduated and you would have become a physics teacher. Is it because you were lazy? I doubt it. You would have chosen another profession if you were lazy. Is it because you didn't have the ability to read? I don't think so either. So why was it that we did not read? Just feel free to unmute your microphone and barge in. Robert.
At least for me, half the time it's because I knew they would just go over the reading in class. You get the same information. So there was a redundancy that I knew it'd be handed to me.
I see Kathy, the party hat and the thumbs up.
I want to second that really quickly. It was redundant and just not efficient if it was going to be addressed in class again.
Mm-hmm. I think that is exactly right. Why read if the information transfer takes place in class? And Celestina, is she actually online? Because she had a lot of, yes, Celestina. We had a kind of an online discussion about that yesterday. I have to tell you a little anecdote for the first time that I switched to peer instruction actually, and I stopped lecturing. This was in 1991, fall 1991, the first class, and I told my students, here, read this chapter, and then in class we're going to just teach by questioning rather than by telling. And I remember that one of the very first classes that I taught that way, I realized that most of my students had not read the textbook. And I was kind of worried. I thought, what am I going to do now? If I just start asking questions, then they won't even know what the questions are about. So I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna summarize in 10 minutes what they should have read. But that's exactly the wrong thing to do. Because in a sense, you're telling the students who have not read, don't worry, if you don't read, Professor Mazur will tell you in 10 minutes what you should have read. And you're telling the students who have put in the effort before class, you fools, you've been wasting your time. And the next class, nobody reads. So I realized that, rather than blaming the students, I should really reflect on my own practices. And that's when I realized what Rob Krakel was saying is that if you transfer information to the classroom, then the students will find any pre-assignment completely redundant and they'll stop doing it. So the first thing you should tell yourself is, I need to change my practices, expect my students to do the pre-assignment, and stick to it diligently, so that if they don't do it, they might as well not come to class, because they won't benefit from class. But the good thing is that once people start participating in Perusall and they connect to each other, the engagement that you find is much higher. I can tell you that from having tried many different approaches than anything else. I with my class of, I have right now 75 students, I get for every single class 1,000 annotations, 1,000. That's pretty amazing, right? I mean, each and every student leaves on the order of about 14 annotations for every class. Okay, so
may I
want to
add a couple of points to that?
Yes, please, go ahead,
Yes.
Pavan.
So as a student, I almost never read because my instructors never told me what to read in advance. And now that I'm an instructor, I usually prepare for my classes for my lectures on the morning of the lecture. So it's hard for me to, well, given my current format, it's hard for me to tell the students what to read before the lecture. So
I can completely understand that, and certainly maybe the first year, you know, you wouldn't want to choose this approach. But once you've taught a class once and you teach it again, you pretty much know in advance what you're going to do. I would be really surprised if every year that you teach a completely different class and completely from scratch and completely new. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And, you know, once you put in the effort to develop it, why keep doing the same thing over and over again if you can accomplish more by posting it ahead of time, either in video form or written form or whatever. Plus, you know, there are a lot of resources that from OpenStax textbooks to many other things that you could use for disseminating information. Okay, here's what I suggest we do, and we're going to do this only for about 7 minutes or so. I'm going to put you in a breakout room, and I would like you to, of course, very quickly introduce yourselves to the others, but do that very fast, just your name and where you're from. And then I would like you to discuss the interaction you had with others during the pre-assignment. Maybe that you'll recognize a name from somebody in your breakout room who you saw yesterday, but you hadn't really met in person yet. That'd be fun. Do you feel you already know some of the people who are in the session? I certainly, I mean, I recognize a lot of names here from people I had not met before, simply because I went through the comments yesterday. And also, do you already feel you have some sense of the material from today? So that's what I would like you to discuss in your breakout room. And again, in about 7 minutes, we'll reconvene here. So I'm going to open the rooms now, and you should be called into a room. If not, I'll be here. Hello, Joseph. Do you need any help? No, you're fine. And here we have somebody called DLS. Okay, good. Hey, Kelly.
Hello.
We're still being recorded, right? Yes.
Yeah.
You're gonna remove that, right?
What's that? Of course. Yeah. This all gets chopped out.
Yeah.
So just do your thing.
Good. I'm seeing one other slide I want. I'm not going to go into breakout room. I said I was going to go, but
It's fine when you put me in, when I get thrown into those, they all kind of like look at my name. Probably I've done it before. They look at me like, "Hey, Kelly," and I'm like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm not a part of this and that facet."
yeah. Let me check in with Isa and let me check in with Isa and Sarah. Let's see, Sarah, Isa, there. Okay. Okay.
You see where we had basically 199,000 cases yesterday?
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know, people are less panicked than when we passed 50,000, which was not that long ago.
It's amazing how you can just get used to things. It just becomes the norm.
I know. My son got COVID.
How did he do with it?
Well, he didn't get very sick, but he lost his sense of smell and taste, which was extremely disconcerting to him.
Yeah, because sometimes it takes a while for that to come back. Some
Yeah.
people still are waiting for it to come back.
Yeah, I know. It's slowly coming back.
Good.
Okay. Sarah is not responding.
Did Chris ended up joining us? I didn't even pay attention. I didn't look over on the bar on the
I
participant.
don't know.
Okay.
No, he's not there. Okay, she says good. Okay. I think it's almost time for a 2-minute warning. Yeah, there we go. There's my dog. Yesterday I was recording a video and he started barking, but I managed to edit it all out. It's amazing. As long as he barked between words, I was able to cut it out.
I was just getting ready to say, I was like, well, please tell me how you do that when if you're talking and he barks at the same time.
Yeah, no, it was right between words, and I managed to cut it out. And there's a little jump cut, but other than that, it's fine. If you know, you see it, but if you don't know it, you don't see it.
Yeah.
Actually, it was not between words; it was between 2 sentences.
Okay. Well, at least your dog's courteous like that. There's when I recorded for grow poles for rice, one of the professors, he warned me that his cat was gonna maybe meow, and near the end, it was only a 3-minute video. The cat made this like grunt meow, like it was in heat, and he didn't want to re-record, but like I forgot how bad it was. And when we heard it when I was playing it during the meeting, I was like, "What is that?" Because I forgot about it. There's like 40 videos. And I just kind of forgot some of the videos. You know, I knew they were good, but forgot which was which. And I was like, "Oh my god, that sounds horrible." It's like, when do we want to re-record it? And I was like, "All right, we'll go with it then. I can't do anything about that." But it basically sounded like a cat in labor, if you can think about that.
Okay, I'm closing the rooms. Welcome back, everyone.
That was quick.
It was 7 or 8 minutes. I mean, it's. But here, this is the point. Time flies when you're having fun. That's the thing. And I'm glad you were having fun. I heard that I checked in on a couple of rooms, and there was a good mix of people who had done the pre-assignment and those who had not. Now imagine doing that with your students, and the students who have done the pre-assignment say, "Oh, we had fun," and they seem to know what they're talking about. Then that sort of puts a little bit of peer pressure on the others. And hopefully, if you did not do your pre-assignment and imagine that we were to do this again a month from now or whatever, that you say, "Hey, you know what? I'm actually going to do it because I can get more out of the live sessions." And trust me, students are not that different from us. We're all pretty similar in our habits. In fact, the survey that we took, this quick poll, clearly points that out. Okay, so let's dive in for about half an hour, and we'll do that partially in the form of a discussion here. So, so essentially, I looked at the feedback, and I'll show you how I prepared myself. And there were a number of comments that dealt with pedagogy, and a number of comments that dealt with, technology. Those that were technology that could be answered by a sentence, I answered straight in Perusall, and you may have received an email from Perusall saying that I'd reacted, because Perusall notifies you when there's an interaction and you're not online. If you haven't seen that yet, you'll see it once you get back online. There's also a notification tray in the program itself that tells you. But the technology parts that deal with pedagogy, I'll get to. But let's first focus on just pedagogy. And let me tell you, I've probably given, dozens and dozens of workshops. Yeah, just this year, I've probably given more than 20 workshops on Perusall. And the number one issue that always comes up is motivating the students. And the other is, instructor involvement, and how do we do this? What do we give to students? And in some sense, that relates to Pavan's question that he asked earlier. So let's talk about these two issues first. For example, for motivating the students, and there were many different variants of this comment. Celestina said, I tried doing this to my high school students, and maybe only 10% did the assignment before I started the discussion. And I think, this brings us back really to the quick poll that we did, that to a large degree, it's a matter of expectations, a matter of your expectation and the students' expectations. Why did this time that you started switching your approach, Celestina, only do 10% their assignment? Most likely because they were expecting that you would take care of presenting the information to them. I find it very difficult, actually. I don't know, I forgot to ask you yesterday online, Celestina, did you make the switch at the beginning of the academic year, or did you do it in the middle of the semester?
No, I just want to try it because we're going through the topic loss of motion, and I know how difficult that topic is for students to grasp. So I said maybe I do because I remember when you were doing this in the first workshop that I attended, you pre-assigned this so that when students gets to your attend your class, they have prior knowledge at least, and if they have some questions, lingering questions, you can address them. So that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah,
it is an epic fail, I think, but
yeah.
I think I can probably be more creative in the approach. Next time I will have a new topic that I will introduce to the class.
Yeah, also I think it's very difficult to do this midstream. I want to put that on the table. I think I would not have the courage myself to change my approach in the middle of an academic year. I mean, it's almost like breaking a contract, right? Because you start by lecturing and you create an expectations with the students that you will lecture on the material, you will present it to them, and now all of a sudden you ask them to read it and then discuss it. Right. So what I do, and in my book on peer instruction, I devote a whole chapter to that, is at the very first day of class of the new year, I spend some time motivating why I'm doing this. I tell my students, look, if you want me to read the book to you, I'd be very happy to do that. But I think you can read, and if you read it, then we can do much more. I can help you understand the material that you've read. I mean, I don't say it exactly like this, but that's what it boils down to. And then from then on, consistently, I do the pre-assignment and the pre-reading. So I think it's very important to motivate the students, to reward the behavior that you want. And rewarding the behavior that you want means not starting to lecture when you discover that the students, that not all of the students have read, right? Just stick to your guns and persevere. Once you do that, you'll find actually that students dive into it. I mean, we have plenty of data to back that up. We now have on Perusall, believe it or not, I looked this morning, 1.25 million students worldwide using it, and probably something like 15 to 20% are from high schools around the world. So there's a really large data set here. And the engagement is pretty phenomenal. I won't have time to show data, but you saw some data in the paper. So I think motivating your students and consistency in the approach to teaching are both really crucial. Now, I would like to really motivate students for intrinsic reasons, right? And one of the reasons for developing Perusall was to promote the intrinsic motivation to reading. I wanted Perusall to look like a social media profile, Facebook, whatever, which is why the discussions that take place in the margin really look like, you know, the discussion on your on a chat on your phone or on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. And it turns out that students are actually drawn into the platform because they want to connect with each other. They want to, you know, a lot of education is a very lonely, a lonely enterprise. You study alone, you're examined alone, and yes, you go to class together, but in the majority of the classes, you just sit there and listen passively. You're not interacting with each other. This brings the interactivity even to the reading out of class asynchronously. So I think that that intrinsic part also helps motivating the students. Is that enough? No, you need some extrinsic motivation. And the extrinsic motivation can be two. One is don't lecture. And two, you know, you can score the students and give them an engagement score for their activity. I'll say more about that in just a second on Perusall, and sort of reward them for engaging with the platform, which means punishing those who don't. So, you know, I think that both falls into the extrinsic motivation category. Now, Lynn, I don't know if Lynn is here. I didn't see her name earlier on. Yeah, Lynn is here. Glad to have you. You asked lots of good questions yesterday. Said, are you suggesting that the instructor could incorporate small instruction based upon the feedback from the confusion report? Now, I realize most of you have a student account. I'll upgrade all of you to an instructor before the end of this workshop. So let me actually show you how I prepared myself. Oh, did I forget to put in that slide? Oh, my slides are out of sequence. Okay, I am so sorry. I will, the uploaded slides, I will, that's too bad. Okay, so I will show you how I prepared myself. Yeah, I think I made a mistake with my slides here. It was too long a week and too late last night when I prepared all of this. So I'm going to go and show you how I prepared myself. So now you see the instructor interface to Perusall rather than the student interface. Here are the two assignments. And for each assignment, it can show a lot of analytics, like, you know, I can see the grade distribution, didn't do that well, but some people did really, really well. And I can see, you know, a time heat map. So today we're November 21. Quite a few of you were working on it even this morning, but most of the activity was actually yesterday at 9 p.m. I'm glad that I did my preparation right then, otherwise I would have missed most. And not many, in fact, no one started before November 19. Let me reassure you, you're pretty typical students. I can look at page view reports and notice that the engagement is not just the first page. Yes, there are some more page views on the first page of the article, but quite a few people went all the way to the end. Really, really good. And then I can get an activity report for every single person in the class. So there's a lot of analytics I see right there. I can immediately see what the most upvoted annotations are. Here, Joseph Price, I saw Joseph here earlier, talked about, being pushed in the flipped classroom. I didn't copy that comment because it didn't quite fit into what I want to approach, but I think it's a really good point. I think I may have responded online. Cecilia said, this comment and so on. So I can look here if there are any burning questions that needed addressing. And for example, amazing response rate or much needed compatibility, Veronica Monti said that if I want to know where that happened, I can just click on it and it jumps to the appropriate part in Perusall and highlights the section of the text where the comment is and shows the whole thread. So it's a wonderful way to very quickly see where the most active discussions are happening. The confusion report that Lynn was referring to, which is referred to in the article, actually is a clustering algorithm that looks at the, oh, this is the video, pardon me. I need to go to the text. That shows where in the text the biggest number of questions cluster and what the keywords are in those clusters. So here's one that has to do with the word areas and school. I'm not sure what it is. I'd have to look a little bit in more detail. But it also shows the main questions that were left, which is again that same question from Cecilia that we saw before. Could this also be flipped as an in-depth activity? And I can see here in the article what that is. So I can quickly see what the clusters are that yield the most questions, annotations and days. Perhaps this has to do with the chunking that out there, collaboration. So the confusion report and the statistics here, that's essentially what I did last night. Another way would be to go to the text assignment or the video assignment. Let's actually go to the video assignment, open it, and I'm happy to see that there are still people who are on there right now. And then click on this little button, all conversations, and I can see all the different conversations. I can see whether there are questions that have been answered, they have a checkbox, or questions that have not been asked. Here, somebody asked, can you use YouTube videos? That was actually Fabian Kunis who asked that question. Hi, Eric, is there a way to add captions to this video? I think I answered that one, actually. Yes, I answered it, but my question was not flagged as a helpful question, and I cannot do that answer, and I cannot do that myself because I'm the one who posted that question. So it's an easy way of jumping through the text and seeing where the unanswered questions are. How is Perusall different from Google Docs? What is the best way to find content for students to read? I noticed that there's been quite a bit of activity. 7 people, added their comments to it, including me asking Kathleen to contact Perusall because that's a feature that I very much would like to. And Kathleen, the answer is, we only recently, is she here, Kathleen? No, she might not be here. Okay. She wanted to see the little bubbles show up here at the bottom. I think that's an excellent question. So that's essentially how I prepared myself. And I don't share the confusion report with my students, but I extract from it questions that I discuss in the live session. So the technology feedback, and for some reason that slide disappeared from my slide deck, but I'll upload it, fell into 3 categories: content, grouping, and scoring. And let's get to some of those questions. And by the way, please use the chat to talk with each other. Isa knows much more about Perusall than most people here, so she can answer questions asynchronously while I talk. So first of all, content. I wonder what textbooks are supported and what is the cost for use. And then Declan said, just wondering how that is different to what we do in shared Google Docs, which is actually also a question that we saw a very similar question just a moment ago. So Declan, you're not the only one who has that question. There it is actually. Shannon Kirby asked that. How is Perusall different from Google Docs? And Fabian asked, can you use YouTube videos? Well, I mean, let's go back for a moment to Perusall, since I had that online. And funny you ask, look at where that video of me that you watched was posted. It's on YouTube. So right now we support Vimeo, YouTube, and any private storage medium such as Google Drive, Dropbox. So if you have your own video, you can put it on Dropbox or Google Drive and put it in. If it's captioned, the captions carry over. So in other words, if you caption the video on YouTube, then that captioning will carry over. It will not be automatically captioned within Perusall, nor will it be stored in Perusall. We can't afford to store video for 1.3 million users and also be free. The two would not be compatible. Now, in terms of content, so let's go back to the course. In the library, you can see the videos of the talks that appeared before me, the one in September, the one in October. I'll add a folder with resources for you if you're more interested in diving deeper. But let's say we want to add something to this library. And again, you cannot do that as a student, but you can do it as an instructor. You can add a web page. So you can link a web page, and then the students can annotate that web page. Documents from Dropbox, documents from your computer, materials from another course, video, a podcast, and I'll tell you in a minute what documents can be added, or it could be a book from the catalog. I mean, essentially, Perusall has a built-in bookstore, and that is what keeps us afloat. That's what has permitted us to operate for free, because essentially we get a commission on textbook sales. But we've negotiated, really pretty good rates for the books. This is an amazing book. I mean, I can't believe I suggest you don't adopt that one. $546. But those prices are not set by Perusall. They're set by the instructor. So essentially, if you want to use if you look, let's say, physics, introductory physics. But it looks in the title. That's right. It might be better to, and most introductory physics books don't have the title introductory physics. So you can go to physics. I mean, maybe it's better to type that then. There's lots of books in there. But if you know the title of you know what, I'm just going to put physics here, then you can see the physics textbooks, 1404. And if you see a book you like, you can adopt it through there. You'll have to work with your school or school district to get free access for your students. That's possible. We've done that with a number of high schools, because the model that we've used is mainly one for higher education, where the instructor adopts a textbook and the students buy access to the textbook. If it's an OpenStax textbook, then you can just upload the OpenStax textbook or adopt it through the bookstore for your students. But if you don't want to use a textbook, then there are many other documents that you can use. It can be a PDF document, a Word document, an HTML document, any EPUB file, any open access material is free. If you're teaching computer science or programming, students, you can upload source code, which will automatically format it and have syntax highlighting. Books, of course, we have to honor the copyright of the author and the publisher. So those are not free, but they can be either purchased through the students or through the institution. Going back for a moment to Declan and Shannon's question, how is this different from Google Doc? Well, remember, the annotation remains tied to a particular location in the text. So if we go back to the article, for example, each of these threads, each of these questions is related to a particular point in the text. if you use a discussion board or a Google Doc, first of all, a Google Doc, you could be using that with a copyright protected work, or with the multitude of different file formats that we have. But you would have to say on page 2 of the article in the right column, second paragraph, blah, blah, blah. Here you see right away where that comment is relating to. Okay, so the next question dealt with grouping. Rory asked, it's interesting that the ideal size turns out to be 20 or less. College tutorial groups are usually much less. And Celestina said, I created a grouping with 5 members and many were frustrated not seeing their group mates post. I had to change the setting into just one big group so students could interact with their classmates. Totally right. And I have, in the article, which stems from research that Kelly Miller, one of my former graduate students, who is now a colleague of mine, and one of the co-founders of Perusall did, we found that in a platform that predated Perusall, the optimum size was around 20 to 40 students. I now tend to think that the optimum size is more towards 40 than 20. And the reason is very simple. If the group is very small, you only interact students to permit there's very few other students. If the group is very large, let's say you teach an online course with 750 students, if you let all 750 students loose on the same text, it's going to be completely overwhelming because everything is annotated and there's no real estate even anymore. So you can let the system automatically partition large numbers of students into smaller groups. If you teach classes on the order of 25, 30 students, one group. The students know each other anyway because they spend so much time together. So just one group, and that would be optimum. You make it too small and it's too sparse because there are simply not enough interactions going on to keep them engaged. The last thing I want to discuss is the scoring. So Lynn asked, does Perusall track who is reading the material and who is not? Yes, and I already showed you some of that. And Rory said, is it necessary to provide the Perusall system with details how to analyze student interactions? I'll show that in just a second. And Greg said, do you explain the algorithm somewhere? So initially, we actually had simply a machine learning algorithm that looked at the content of the annotations. I have a colleague at Harvard who's a quantitative social scientist, Gary King, who has made a career out of using machine learning algorithms to analyze posts on social media. And that has become an extremely successful field, but with commercial implications too, from, predicting election outcomes to finding out about product placements on commercials on televisions. And when I heard about his work, I thought, wow, maybe we can apply this to education. I know we can't apply it to essays or long pieces of writing, but short pieces of writing, like the annotations I just showed to you, might work because they're not that different from a tweet or a post on Facebook or LinkedIn. So I asked him that, and he said, yeah, I think we can use that. And that then became Kelly Miller's PhD thesis, where she showed that the machine learning algorithm is more consistent than 2 different coders. So in other words, if you take coder A and coder B, where coder A by hand scores 500 annotations, and you compare it with coder B, also doing by hand 500, they agree by about 75%. I mean, it's about the best you can do as a human being because it's partially subjective. And I'll tell you what the subjective part is in just a second. I realized that I skipped over that. But if you then take coder A and you train a machine learning algorithm, and then you take another set of 500 and you ask coder A, you grade those by hand too, and then you ask the machine learning algorithm to also go over that second set, which of course the machine spits out in a split second. whereas the decoder is suffering and cursing, it tracks it to within 80%, so better than another human being. And so that's when we switched to this content scoring algorithm that's discussed in the article. Now, what do we mean by content? What we mean is annotations that reveal thoughtful reading and interpretation of the text. So if a student just highlights things and says, I don't understand this, I don't understand this, I don't understand this, that's not very thoughtful, because you could just go in the text, highlight random things and say, I don't understand this. So that's worth no credit at all. But if you highlight something and you say, I don't understand this because on page 256 it says blah, 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 then, you know, at least you make a connection. If you highlight something, you say, I don't understand this because on page 256 it says blah, 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 and I thought that, and you reveal your thinking, that starts to really accumulate real credit. Now, initially we did just that type of scoring, and we only rewarded based on content. But then after that article that you read appeared, we found that many other metrics of engagement were close correlators with classroom performance, like the students who started earlier do better. The students who break up the reading into pieces do better, even if they read the same amount of time, than students who read everything at once. So we switched then from a scheme where students are only evaluated on content to a holistic scheme that actually has many different metrics. How often do you open and come back to the assignment? How much of the document does the student read? And 20% means not 20%, that's the weight it has in the scoring algorithm, right? So you can only get 20% if you have active reading time on every page. Active reading target. How many responses do you get? We find that the students who post questions that gets answered by others are more engaged and do better in the classroom than those who not. So let's encourage them to do that, A, by adjusting the scoring, and B, by having the system nudge them. Some of you may have seen it. You know, if you don't start, the system will send you a reminder, hey, most of your classmates have already started, you should start too. Research shows that people who do this earlier do better. And likewise, in the system, it says, you know, none of your annotation, after a while, it'll say, none of your annotations have been upvoted. It's a little bit like MyFitnessPal or Duolingo, right? Except a little bit less, you know, passive aggressive, I would say, than some of these apps. So you can fiddle with this, but the default values that are here, if you click holistic, are those that essentially come out of research. Okay, I'm going to wrap up here. You did the asynchronous preparation before. We've now used our synchronous time to discuss the questions. I wanted to make it a little bit more interactive. I hope I'll stay around a little longer to answer questions. And then you can continue to dig deeper later. I'll put some additional resources online and you can go back and read more and continue to interact. And that's pretty much how it goes in my classes too. Now, here's something you may want to do. We'll send you an email so that you can do it on your own. But it's very simple. If you want to upgrade to an instructor account, then the only thing you need to do is log into your Perusall account, enroll in a course, and then type in this course code, and boom, your account will be an instructor account. So it's V as in Victor, another V as in Victor, Q as in Queen, I as in Isaac, B as in Boy, J as in Joanna, N as in Nancy, V as in Victor, K as in King. But we'll send you an email with that code. So that's it. I will post my slides. And if you want a little bit more about Perusall, there's this resource I made earlier this summer for people who wanted to flip their course online. Maybe, Sarah, we can include that in the email that we sent. And I want to thank you for your attention. I'll be sticking around another 15 minutes or so to answer questions. And that brings us right to noon. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
So feel free to raise your hand. And Isa, I did not look at the chat. Maybe you can summarize if there's anything I should answer here.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Eric.
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay, Krastan, but somebody else was saying, who was that?
I can't see, so.
Okay, Krastan, you go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I turned on and then my internet turned off and now I turn on again. I just want to say two things. We have this other network that most of you, I think, or all of you are aware, called Physics of Living Systems, Graduate Student Network. We had a discussion last week, and one of the things that had been coming over the years is that we don't really support teachers financially. And I just want to say that I am very, very open. If you guys need some funding at the schools, we can make these available through supplements to grant that already exist. You just have to contact Eric or Lisa, and then we will discuss together how to make funds available. But this could be, I think, helpful for teachers to have some funding from NSF for developing further this network. Also, the second thing is that part of these funds might be useful for you to create lectures on specific topics of interest in physics that perhaps can be posted on Perusall and used by other teachers in their classrooms as teaching materials. And so part of the funds could be for that. So I just want to thank all of you for participating, and your feedback is extremely important to us, and we want to grow the network rather than shrink it. So yeah, so and thank you, Eric, of course, and Lisa and Sarah and Kelly.
My pleasure. So feel free to unmute yourself, or I haven't been able to catch up with the chat, so or raise your hand, but I think it's a small enough group that we can just unmute ourselves. So any questions that I have not answered?
The access code to upgrade to instructor is not currently working when I click on enroll in course and enter in VVQIBJNVK.
Okay, so I'm gonna get the document that has the instructions and copy and paste. I hope I didn't make a typo. Thank you for pointing that out. Upgrade.
Eric, I just tried to use that code as well, but I think I'm already, I was automatically made an instructor. Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe that's why the code isn't working for some people, because they're already instructors.
Oh, that could, yes. Yes. I need to go, I'm gonna put it in the chat. So if you're already an instructor, then you cannot upgrade to another instructor. You're already an instructor, period. So let me quickly grab the code, and I'm gonna put this in the chat.
I want to say while you're doing that, another really great feature for those of us, I know it may be resource demanding and there may not be a cost model for the work for it, would be to add some sort of Edpuzzle-like functionality, because I work with a lot of remedial students in a more basic physics class versus an AP physics class. Many students are not college bound, but it would benefit for them to have a guided video either from their instructor or that they've found on YouTube, and be able to put questions periodically to ensure their attention level is at the high level they need to be, whereas I see currently it's built more towards reading instruction.
So can you say a little bit about Edpuzzle? I'm not familiar with that.
Edpuzzle, you play a video, and you can take one off of YouTube, and you can add multiple choice questions to it, or comments, or even open-ended questions. So you can't integrate open-ended questions with Schoology, which is what I currently do. And then you give them a score, and they have to achieve a certain score before they can move on to a ticket out or some other sort of activity using Schoology integration. So I like really starting out my lessons with those. And I don't really do that for a grade usually, because I usually make those segments like 5 minutes. I find with their remedial students, their attention span's often not very long. Most I can do is 9. I've heard of teachers trying to do longer, and I'm not sure if that's a good idea with that age level. But and then I'll do ticket outs where I give them multiple attempts at this in this crisis learning, and then I will score the best of their 3 or 4 attempts at a ticket out, which builds upon that and has lots of pretty pictures and then multiple choice questions. They can learn from their previous which ones they got wrong, but never actually gives them the right answer.
Yeah, I think that is great, and I would love to see that functionality built in. Panopto has something similar, so you can upload video to Panopto, put in quizzes, and you get even detailed statistics. So since Harvard has since Panopto is built into Canvas at the Harvard license.
How do you spell that?
I beg your pardon?
How do you spell Panopto?
Panopto. Okay, I finally found the Word file. So there are the instructions for upgrading. And if you're already an instructor because you made an account as an instructor, then you don't need this. But if you made an account as a student, then you will need that code. And I know several people who were on yesterday said they couldn't see the catalog. That's a clear indication that they were not. They didn't make an instructor account. But to get back to your question, Mark, I love that interactivity. I think it makes the video much more engaging and also forces the students to pause and think rather than just passively sit there and watch. And when we implemented the video on Perusall, the first thing I looked for was whether you can use the built-in YouTube functionality, because YouTube has a very primitive pause and wait for a click input. The click does not get recorded. It doesn't matter. Let's say you put a multiple choice question on the screen, A, B, C, D. It just records that you click one of them. It doesn't record which one you clicks and then continues playing. So sort of expected to say, if you answered B, that's right, and then continue, for example, something like that. But unfortunately, that feature interferes with the annotation feature in Perusall. So at present, there's no interactivity, but it's definitely something we're looking into. We are looking into finding a way to take an Edpuzzle-like interface or Panopto-like interface and implementing it within Perusall. Unfortunately, Panopto does not have an API that permits you tap into their interactivity. Maybe Edpuzzle has. We'll look into it. So Celestina has a question in the chat. I'm glad the code works. So maybe I had it wrong on the slide. I doubt it because I just cut and pasted. But if that's the case, my apologies. So Celestina says, can you include assessment feature in Perusall? So I presume you mean an assessment different from the engagement assessment that is built in. And the answer is no. You'd have to put that outside of Perusall. The only type of assessment that Perusall does is it looks at the engagement with the platform. How much time, how often did they open, how much do their questions or answers get upvoted by other students, how much do their questions trigger follow-up comments or questions. Right? Because that's a metric for engagement too. And all of the other metrics of engagement that I went through during the talk. But there's not, it's not a feature where you can say, okay, let's put a quiz into Perusall. You could, of course, upload a Word document that has a couple of questions with no answers. and let students answer those questions in Perusall, but you'd have to hand score them.
But why don't we do a double-blind experiment? Students that use Perusall and students that don't, and see how they perform.
Yeah, so we did that experiment. We did that experiment and we found better classroom performance. Some people commented in the pre-assignment that they thought the gain was, on the low side. And maybe, it's true, it's not a huge difference, but it is a gain. I think the biggest gain comes from the active learning, from the fact that you free up time in the classroom to work on improving thinking skills rather than transferring information. And the experiment that we did had that already built in the two models. So one part did Perusall and then active learning. The other part did, just read the chapter and then active learning, right?
But this was done, I know that, but I was talking about high school students. People at different ages learn differently.
Right.
And so there might be some adjustments to Perusall for use in high school rather than college.
Yeah, no, it's true.
You already have selected the students in college from the high school. So the question is, how do you?
Yes, I think that's a very good point, Kristan. And I would love to work with somebody to take data. So I encourage you to do that. Cecilia.
Not only that, but why don't we fund it so people actually have vested interest in that?
Well, if there's somebody who's interested here, Isa and I would love to collaborate with you. Cecilia, you had your hand up. But don't,
because I'm working actually at high school and I do use Teams. I do use a lot in Google, and we started now to pull on Perusall all our books. And the question is, again, like Kristen said, in high school, kids do learn differently. And I have a group where I have at the same age kids, and I have a group where I have like kids between 16 and 18. And of course, the fact that they are learning so differently, you see on a regular basis, daily basis, that they usually tend to react in a different way to all those let's say, materials that they read. So there was also my question on your article after I read it, and I'm sure if I read it again after discussion of today, I probably have another tons of questions, because it would have been nice to really go more deeply into the materials that you have and into Perusall, how to adapt that at high school level. Because I'm pretty sure that if we look at that, we could even get engaged students differently at some age and make already a pre-selection of the students only by using Perusall. And you wouldn't need so many tests and notes and all those things, because you can already get that somehow from Perusall out.
Absolutely. I mean, and I would love to collaborate. And certainly, you heard that Kristan is willing to support that type of work. So anybody who is interested in that, please, let's get together and discuss that. I love it.
I think one thing that will pop up, at least for New York, I know it's true, is some of the legal stuff. At least for my school district, it's a fight to get free software, even though free software is free for many reasons and it follows all the rules that are required. They see free and they go, it's never always going to be free. So there might be a magic box that we need to fill out to get schools on board, and at least high schools. And I think they'd buy into it a bit faster.
Well, we could make it.
I'm sure the people at Perusall will be happy to charge you.
Exactly. For New York, we'll make it especially expensive.
That's what they love. I don't get it,
but seriously, Rob, we'd be happy to work with you. And we do for a number of larger universities, we have a site license agreement where we actually give priority tech support and training and so on. So I don't know anything about that because I'm not involved in any of these things, but I can certainly put you in touch with the right people. And we have quite a few high schools that are using it and school districts that have arrangements. I don't know what the details are, but I can put you in touch with the right people.
One thing to be cautious of is you want to make sure you're abiding by FERPA agreements. You're really not collecting any information from students other than first and last name and some sort of a school email address.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're FERPA, we're completely FERPA compliant. In fact, because we operate across the globe and many European schools have adopted the software, given the extreme strict controls on privacy in Europe, we had to be significantly more cautious about privacy issues than FERPA requires. So, and here's the good thing. I didn't talk about that because it didn't come up in the annotations. Perusall is completely LTI compliant, which means that you can integrate Perusall into most learning management systems, from Desire to Learn to Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle. I mean, all of the main learning management systems, including many of those that are used in high schools, are compliant with Perusall, which means the students don't even need a separate account on Perusall. They just sign on to whatever the learning management system is that the school uses, and then they click on the assignment, and boom, without logging in or anything, and all the data from Perusall filter straight back into the learning management system. I forgot what the other Scholastic is. That's also a learning management system, right? It's one I think that originated in Scandinavia.
I think you're thinking of Schoology. Schoology is a real big one.
That's the one. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Just had a very quick question for you, Eric. I know
yes,
you
Drew
mentioned before about, I guess, we briefly talked about how you're doing asynchronous laboratory work. Are you using Perusall as part of that for distribution, or no?
No, we're not. We could, and I heard actually also about a number of faculty. I don't know how relevant that would be for you, but a number of faculty who start the semester in the first class by putting their syllabus in Perusall and use it asynchronously. So in that class, they tell students how to use Perusall, and the material is not a textbook or anything else. No, it's a syllabus for the class. And during the class, the students collectively annotate the syllabus, talk to each other, and the instructor monitors it and says, I've had a number of instructors say, wow, I learned things about my syllabus and about my students that I never would have found out otherwise. And I wanted to do that this year, but then since the course went completely online, I put my syllabus on Canvas rather than putting it in Word or anything else. And it was spread out over many different pages. And I thought, you know what, I'm just not going to do it. But you're right. You could distribute many other materials, such as instructions for labs, and give students an opportunity to discuss it with each other. So I think the limit is your imagination, really.
Yeah, it seems like with laboratory work, at least in we'll say the standard operating procedure and the way labs are done at most places. I don't know how they're done at Harvard specifically, but a lot of the pre-lab work and like the can be done sort of asynchronously, or at least done outside the classroom. And it'd probably be better if much of what happens in a laboratory classroom may be better if it happens outside of a laboratory classroom. I'll just sort of put it like that.
Great, thank you, Drew. And we need to catch up anyway. We have a long overdue discussion. I have 2 more weeks, and then finally I can breathe again. Anybody else before we wrap up here? So let me ask a question. In the first few talks, what we did, and this was a workshop more than a talk. What we did is we recorded the talk, we put the recorded talk on Perusall, and then we had the recorded talk on the Saturday morning again, and then a discussion. How many of you would be in favor of putting the recorded talk on Perusall, and then encouraging people a little bit more to watch it beforehand, and then devoting the entire hour to a discussion rather than playing the thing live and then having a discussion? Should we try that experiment? So
like
go to the participant list, click on participants, and then at the bottom there should be a number of icons, and click yes if you think we should try that experiment, no if you think we should not try that experiment, and nothing if you're neutral. Okay, I see thumbs up. So okay. Let me see. Let me go to gallery there. Okay, I see quite a few people having thumbs up. Okay. I don't know what thumbs down. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a thumbs down. Cecilia, you have your hand up. Is that a question or is that a thumbs up on my question? You're muted.
It's more like a thumbs up. I would definitely love to have in front of the materials and then really reserve that 1 hour on discussion and maybe give us more, let's say, direction where we could together think and find solutions.
Okay, I that's music to my ears. Okay, I'm really so happy, and I'm glad we did this workshop because that laid the basis for that. So let's try that. And of course, when we try that, there'll be people who will come to the discussion without having watched the talk, but that will always be the case. And then they can always watch the talk afterwards. But at least we don't do that duplication that we spoke about at the beginning of the workshop. Terrific. Well, Sarah, I don't think we have another talk planned for this year, do we? For this calendar year? No.
No, we're hoping for January.
We're hoping for January. Good, that's good. So
we're not
watch.
hoping. We're going to have in January. No hope. We are having in January.
We're having one in January, of course. Yes, we don't have a date yet. I think that's what Sarah was implying. So I want to thank you. This was really great, and I enjoyed interacting with you online, and we can continue the discussion in Perusall, right? And I promised in the chat to Cecilia that I would put some additional resources on Perusall. Sarah will make sure that I actually do that. And I wish you, if you're in the US, a happy break that we all need this coming week when it's Thanksgiving here in the US. And for those of you who I won't see until January, happy holidays, stay safe. I hope that by the time we meet again in the new year, things will be more under control and the world will be in a better shape than it is right now. But one thing is sure, we have the beginnings here of a phenomenal network of people interested in improving physics education at the high school level. I love it. So thank you all and be well. Have a nice rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Eric, do you want to stop the YouTube live? I guess I can.
I'm still here.
You can stop the YouTube live. I don't know if we want to have take a